I bought 5 acres of desert scrub for $12,000, then found a $2 million mansion sitting on it. 14 months after closing, I finally make the drive to see my land, expecting empty desert, maybe some saguaro cactus. Instead, Mediterranean villa, infinity pool, 3-car garage, security cameras tracking my rusted truck. I pull out my county deed, check it twice. My hands are shaking. Parcel number matches perfectly. This mansion is on my property. A woman walks out holding wine, designer sunglasses, that smile rich people make when they own the sheriff. I hold up my deed. She doesn't even look. No, you don't, you pathetic little man. Get off my property before I have you arrested. 10 minutes later, a deputy escorts me off my own land. You can smell chlorine from her pool mixing with desert creosote as I'm forced to leave. What would you do? Where are you watching from? Drop your state below. I want to know where my people are. Because what happened next involved lawyers, lies, and one very public meltdown. Let me back up. My name's Dax Emery, 52. Spent 28 years on an automotive assembly line in Detroit. Good union job, decent benefits. Then 2022 came. Corporate moved production to Mexico. 28 years evaporated. Severance, $47,000 after taxes. My wife Simone died 6 months before the layoff. Pancreatic cancer, 11 months from diagnosis to burial. Our savings vanished into medical bills. When she passed, she squeezed my hand and whispered, "Don't let the world make you small." I sold our Michigan house, paid off debt. What remained bought me a used Airstream and $12,000. I'd spent months researching land flipping by cheap at tax auctions, sell to developers. Double your money in 2 years. I found the parcel online, Cochise County, Arizona, 5 acres, minimum bid $8,000. Google Earth showed empty desert. May 2023. I won the auction at 11/8. The deed arrived 3 days later. Heavy paper, embossed seal. First good thing in 2 years. But I was broke. Living in my Airstream on a friend's ranch in New Mexico, picking up handyman jobs. Took 14 months to save enough for the drive to Arizona. She looked at me the way you'd look at a stray dog. I held up my deed. "Ma'am, I think there's been a mistake. I own this land." She walked closer, squinted at the paper, then laughed this sharp, mean little sound. "No, you don't, you pathetic little man." Her voice dripped with contempt. "Now get off my property before I call the police." "Ma'am, this is a legal county deed." She was already pulling out her phone. "Branson? Yes, hi. There's a man harassing me on my property. Can you send someone?" 8 minutes later, a sheriff's patrol car rolled up. Deputy climbed out, mid-30s, mirrored sunglasses, jaw already set before he heard a word. I started explaining, showed him my deed. He barely glanced at it. The woman was already talking, her voice suddenly soft and shaky. "Officer, he's been circling my property for 20 minutes. I'm scared. Scared. This woman in her $1 million villa with security cameras everywhere was scared of a guy in work boots holding legal paperwork." The deputy turned to me. "Sir, I'm going to need you to leave. I legally own this land. Take it up with a lawyer. Move along." "But," his hand went to his belt. Not the gun, the cuffs. "Sir, leave now or I'm citing you for trespassing." I looked at the woman. She was smiling over the rim of her wine glass. I got in my truck, hands shaking on the wheel. As I drove away, I could see her in the rear view waving. The whole drive back to New Mexico, I kept hearing Simone's voice. "Don't let the world make you small." I'd lost my job, lost my wife, lost my home. Every time I thought I'd found solid ground, it collapsed. But this land, I had the deed. I had the law. I wasn't losing this too. 4 days later, a FedEx envelope showed up at Hoyt's ranch. I was fixing a water pump when the truck pulled up, signed for it with grease-stained hands. Inside thick cream letterhead, Kerrigan and Lyle, LLP, the kind of law firm that charges $500 just to answer the phone. Cease and desist letter. Said I was committing harassment and slander of title. Demanded I sign over my deed to Ms. Vivica Stroud within 10 days or face a $500,000 lawsuit. Vivica Stroud. Now I had a name. The letter was designed to terrify. Words like tortious interference and malicious prosecution. I didn't have $500, let alone $500,000. But something felt wrong. If she really owned that land, why threaten me? Why not just produce her own deed? Next morning, I drove 2 hours to the Cochise County Courthouse. The clerk's office smelled like burnt coffee and old paper. Fluorescent lights buzzing. Same woman who'd processed my auction payment looked up. "Honey, you're the one who bought 407-22-185? She leaned close. "You inspect that property first." "Supposed to be vacant." She just shook her head, pulled up the records. I requested every document related to the parcel, 30 pages. Sat at a wooden table and went through them line by line. Here's what I found. Vivica's company, Stroud Premier Holdings, bought the adjacent parcel in 2019. Number 407-22-184, right next door. She pulled permits in 2020, built the mansion in 2021 to 2022. But the surveyor's report attached to her building permit showed the structure sitting 200 feet onto my parcel, not hers. And the tax records? She'd been paying taxes on her parcel 407-22-184, but never paid a cent on mine, the one her mansion actually sat on. Either the surveyor made a massive mistake or someone was running a scam. The clerk was watching me photocopy everything. "These auction parcels," she said quietly, "sometimes people forget they exist, and sometimes other folks take advantage of that." I left with a folder full of evidence and rage burning in my chest. I spent 3 days calling lawyers. Most wanted 20 grand up front. Finally found Marlo Voss, solo practitioner, in a strip mall office. Waiting room had 2 plastic chairs and a dying plant, but his walls were covered in pro bono awards. I laid everything out, the deed, the letter, the county records. Marlo studied them for a long time. "You've got them dead to rights, but they'll bury you in motions. Drag this out for years. Can you afford that?" "No." "They're counting on it." He leaned back. "You ever hear of adverse possession? It's when someone occupies land openly for long enough that they eventually gain legal ownership. Arizona requires 10 years of continuous use. I remembered reading something about squatters' rights once in a legal thriller. Never thought it'd matter to me. "She started construction in 2021, I said. "That's only 3 years." "Exactly." "She's got no claim. You own this land free and clear." He tapped my deed. "This is ironclad." "Then why threaten to sue?" "Because most people don't know what you just learned. They get scared and fold." Marlo pushed the papers back. "Question is, are you going to fold?" I thought about Simone, the plant closing, being escorted off my own land. "No." "Good. My retainer's $1,500. Gets you through initial response and maybe a motion or two." I paid him everything I'd saved, walked out with $63 in my pocket and the first real hope I'd felt in months. That's when I saw the silver Mercedes across the parking lot. Vanity plate STROUD1. Parked outside an upscale bistro. Through the window, Vivica, sitting with someone in a sheriff's uniform. Deputy Kelton, the same guy who'd kicked me off my property 4 days ago. They were laughing, clinking champagne flutes. I pulled out my phone, took a photo, timestamp, geotag, everything. My hands were shaking, but not from fear anymore, from anger. This deputy who was supposed to serve the public, protect people's rights, was having a boozy lunch with the woman he'd just helped steal my land. I stood there watching them through that window. Vivica threw her head back, laughing at something Kelton said. She looked so comfortable, so sure of herself. She had no idea I'd just hired a lawyer, no idea I had county records proving her mansion was on my land, no idea that photo I'd just taken was going to matter. People like Vivica, they think the system protects them. They think money and connections mean they can do whatever they want. They're usually right. But not this time. 2 weeks after hiring Marlo, I filed a formal complaint with the county assessor's office. Demanded they investigate the survey error and fix the records. Response came 3 weeks later. Single page. My complaint was under review. A resurvey had been ordered. Timeline, 6 to 8 months. 6 to 8 months. Meanwhile, Vivica was living in her mansion, getting closer to that magic 10-year mark every day. I called the assessor's office, got transferred 5 times, hold music for 30 minutes, disconnected. Called back different person, same runaround. I requested Vivica's building permits, the ones that should show exactly where construction was approved. Clerk said they'd been misplaced. 20 pages of permits for a $2 million project, just gone. Every door slammed in my face. I was sitting in my Airstream one night, staring at the ceiling, when I realized something. I'd been fighting this alone, acting like if I just followed the rules the system would work. But the system was rigged. I needed allies. I posted in a Facebook group, Cochise County Land Disputes, laid out my situation. Within 48 hours, 3 people messaged me. Turned out Hoyt, whose ranch I was living on, had his own Stroud problem. They'd built a development that somehow put his only cattle access road on their property. Now they wanted $12,000 a year for an easement. Tisha, a single mom, got foreclosed on after 2 missed payments. Her house was auctioned to Stroud Premier, flipped in 6 weeks for triple the price. Cruz, a veteran, tried bidding on a tax auction. Stroud bid exactly $100 over his maximum, like someone had leaked his financials. We met at a diner on Route 80. The booth's vinyl was cracked and patched with duct tape. Coffee tasted like it had been brewing since morning. but sitting there with 3 other people who'd been screwed the exact same way, it felt like something was finally shifting. We laid out our stories. The pattern was obvious. Stroud Premier Holdings kept winning, and county officials kept helping them win. Tisha mentioned something that made my blood run cold. You know Vivica's law firm, Kerrigan and Lyle? They represent the county in zoning disputes, conflict of interest. Her lawyer worked for both sides. We need to go public, Cruz said. I'd been thinking the same thing. I found an investigative reporter, Sloan Pacheco, Channel 9 News. Her last 3 stories were corruption exposés. She looked hungry. I sent her everything. Photos, deeds, that picture of Vivica lunching with Deputy Kelton. She called 6 hours later. We met the next day. She interviewed all 4 of us, dug through public records, found financial connections between Vivica and County Assessor Branson Tillridge. $5,000 donation to Stroud's charity gala. Her segment aired Thursday night. Land grab or legal loophole. Aerial footage of the mansion. My interview. Tax records on screen. A property law expert saying Vivica had absolutely no legal claim. The segment got 62,000 views in 2 days. I felt like maybe finally someone was listening. Then I walked outside Friday morning. All 4 tires on my truck slashed. Deep cuts. Rubber peeling back. My windows were soaped big dripping letters. Drop it. The smell of tire rubber in the heat. The chemical sting of that soap. I stood there with my heart hammering. No cameras nearby. I called the sheriff. Of course Kelton showed up. Took a report like he was ordering lunch. Probably random vandalism, he said. Kids don't slash tires the morning after you embarrass their parents on the news. After Kelton left, I found a business card wedged in my door. Heavy cardstock, gold lettering, private investigation firm offering property protection services, $5,000 a month. I looked up the company online. The owner's photo was right there on the homepage. Vivica's ex-husband, same guy from her Facebook photos. I stood there holding that card. It wasn't an offer. It was a threat. Hoyt walked over, saw the damage, saw my face. They're scared, he said quietly. People don't send messages like this unless you've got them cornered. He was right. The news segment worked. We'd rattled them, and now they were showing their teeth. I looked at that card again, felt the weight of it. Expensive, professional, threatening. Then I took a photo of it, added it to my evidence folder. If they wanted to play dirty, fine. But every move they made, every threat, every slashed tire, every shady phone call I was documenting, they had money and connections. I had receipts. 3 days after the news segment aired, Marlowe called with bad news. They filed a lis pendens against your property. It's a lien that clouds the title, means you can't sell until the lawsuit resolves. They're freezing your asset. I was changing oil under my truck when he called, rolled out onto the gravel, oil staining my hands. My $12,000 investment was now locked in legal limbo. There's more, Marlowe said. They filed a motion to compel arbitration, claiming there's some buried clause in your transaction. Except they won't say where, because it doesn't exist. Pure fabrication. They can just make things up. They're betting you don't know it's fraud and that you'll run out of money before you can prove it. He paused. This is going to get expensive, Dax. I'd already spent my $1,500 retainer. Had maybe $40 left. That evening at Hoyt's ranch, I told Tisha and Cruz about the lis pendens. The kitchen table was covered in documents and cold coffee. Tisha spoke first. We pool resources. I've got 800 saved. Cruz nodded. 1,500 from me. Via disability just came through. Hoyt pulled out his checkbook. 6,000. If you win, we all win. This sets precedent. I stared at these 3 people who'd become allies. You don't have to. Yes, we do, Hoyt said firmly. You've got the proof. We're in this together. We pooled $8,400, enough to hire someone who could expose what we all suspected. Marlowe connected us with Orrin, a 70-year-old retired county engineer who smelled like Old Spice and old paper. He agreed to analyze Vivica's permits for $2,500. For 2 weeks, Orrin haunted the county clerk's office, hunched over plat maps, filling a leather journal with notes. He worked like he was investigating a murder. When he delivered his 47-page report, we gathered at Marlowe's office after hours. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Orrin's voice was calm, but his findings were explosive. Vivica's building permit listed the wrong parcel mine, not hers. The septic approval referenced a non-existent lot. The pool permit bore a signature from an official who'd retired 2 years before construction started. Forged. This wasn't an accident, Orrin said. This was systematic fraud. He showed us 3 other Stroud Premier projects, same surveyor, same mistakes. Buildings always ending up on cheaper adjacent land. Same pattern every time. They've been running this scam for years, Oren said flatly. Marlowe pulled up Arizona statute on his laptop. State law requires building permits to match deed parcel numbers exactly. Any variance voids the permit. I'd read about a case in Texas once. Guy built a house 6 inches over his property line, neighbor sued, judge ordered demolition. Cost him everything. Vivica had built a $2 million mansion on the wrong parcel entirely. Marlowe submitted Oren's report to the county planning department. We waited. 2 days later, planning director Ainsley Kaur invited me for a courtesy meeting. Her office smelled like lavender air freshener trying to mask something rotten. Hair pulled tight, lipstick on her teeth. She slid a document across her desk. We commissioned a new survey last week. Shows the mansion sits properly on Miss Stroud's parcel. I looked at the survey, dated 7 days ago. Coordinates adjusted just enough to show the mansion barely within Vivica's lot. This is fabricated, I said. Ainsley's smile was professional ice. I don't appreciate baseless accusations. This was conducted by a licensed professional. Who paid for it? That's not relevant. It is if the county is covering up fraud. Her smile vanished. This meeting is over. File another complaint if you want. Good day. I walked out, pulse hammering. In the parking lot sat Deputy Kelton's patrol car in Ainsley Kaur's reserved space. I pulled out my phone, photographed that cruiser sitting right there in her spot, time-stamped, geotagged, added it to my folder. Right next to the lunch photo with Vivica. Right next to the vandalism report Kelton dismissed. Right next to the fake survey. Right next to everything else. They had money, power, connections reaching into every corner of county government. They thought those things made them untouchable. But I had something they'd underestimated. I had documentation. Every threat, every forged document, every cozy meeting. I was building a case one piece at a time. They thought I'd run out of money or courage. They were learning I had more of both than they'd counted on. A week later, Sloan the reporter texted me. Found something big. Meet me. We met at the State Archives in Phoenix. The building smelled like old paper and dust. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating particles floating in the air. Sloan had her laptop open, surrounded by folders and microfiche printouts. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. I was digging through old property records, she said. Wanted to understand why Vivica would risk building on your land. Then I found this. She pulled up a document from 1987, an old plat map showing underground water formations across Cochise County. There was a massive aquifer running directly beneath my parcel. Water rights in Arizona are worth serious money, Sloan explained, especially in drought years. We're talking hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions, depending on flow rate and depth. I stared at the map. My 5 acres of worthless desert sat on top of an underground reservoir. It gets better, Sloan said. She pulled up LLC filings. Vivica's company Stroud Premier Holdings has a silent partner, Hexagon Resource Group. They specialize in water speculation, buying land over aquifers, then selling extraction rights to cities and agricultural operations. She clicked to another document. Corporate officers of Hexagon Resource Group, Branson Tillridge, the county assessor. The same Branson Vivica had called that first day. And the second officer, Ainsley Kaur, the planning director who'd just shown me that fake survey. They're all in it together, I said slowly. Sloan nodded. Here's what I think happened. They knew about the aquifer under your parcel. Vivica's mansion was never the end game. It was just a way to establish presence on the land. Once she claimed adverse possession after 10 years, she'd transfer the property to herself legally, then immediately sell the water rights to Hexagon for probably $700,000 or $800,000. I sat back in my chair. This wasn't just about a mansion. This was about water. In the desert, water was everything. Your tax deed purchase blindsided them, Sloan continued. You bought the land before they could complete their 10-year plan. That's why they're fighting so hard. They've already invested years and millions of dollars into this. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from anger. They'd tried to steal my land. No, they'd tried to steal everyone's water. There's one more thing, Sloan said quietly. I checked adjudication records at the State Water Resources Department. In Arizona, water rights can transfer separately from land deeds. Most people don't know that. But if Vivica had succeeded in taking your land through adverse possession, she could have sold just the water rights and kept the mansion. Double profit. I thought about Simone, about how she'd told me not to let the world make me small. This was bigger than me now. This was about stopping people who thought they could buy their way into stealing public resources. Can you prove all this? I asked. I've got documents. But I need more time to connect everything definitively. Corporate shell games are tricky. She looked at me. The question is, can you hold out long enough for me to finish? I've got 3 other people backing me financially, and a lawyer who believes in the case. Then we fight, Sloan said. Because if they're doing this here, they're doing it other places too. I drove back to New Mexico that evening with a folder full of printouts. The sun was setting over the desert, painting everything orange and purple. Beautiful country, worth protecting. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that aquifer beneath my 5 acres, about how Vivica and her partners had planned to drain it for profit while regular people paid more and more for water. They'd made one critical mistake, though. They'd underestimated a laid-off factory worker with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. The water rights discovery changed everything. This wasn't just about my property anymore. This was organized corruption reaching into state resources. Marlowe called an emergency meeting at his office. This time we had reinforcements. He'd recruited an old colleague named Iris Tannen, environmental law specialist, early 40s, sharp suits and sharper mind. She walked in carrying 3 accordion files and a laptop covered in activist stickers. "I'll work pro bono," she said before anyone asked. "Hexagon contaminated my childhood reservation's water supply back in the 90s. I've been waiting for a chance to hit them where it hurts." We spread documents across Marlowe's conference table. County records, LLC filings, water adjudication reports, Oren's forensic analysis. It looked like a murder board. Iris studied everything for 2 hours without speaking. Then she looked up. We hit them on 4 fronts simultaneously: legal, political, media, and financial. Make it impossible for them to defend all angles at once. She outlined the strategy on a whiteboard. Front 1, legal assault. "We file a qui tam lawsuit against Tillridge and Core for defrauding the county," Iris explained. "It's a whistleblower suit that lets private citizens sue on the government's behalf. If we win, you get 15 to 30% of whatever the county recovers." I'd never heard of qui tam before. Sounded like something from a legal thriller. "We also file an emergency injunction to halt any property transfers," Marlowe added, "and ethics complaints with the state bar against Kerrigan Vivica's lawyer for conflict of interest. He can't represent both Vivica and the county." Iris was already typing up motions on her laptop. Front 2, technical evidence. Oren brought in a younger guy named Landry, early 30s, drone operator and forensic photographer. He had equipment that looked like it belonged in a spy movie. "I'll conduct an aerial survey of the property," Landry explained. "Use ground-penetrating radar to map the aquifer and any extraction infrastructure." He showed us satellite imagery going back 5 years. Google Earth archives. You could watch Vivica's mansion being built in time-lapse, the construction clearly encroaching onto my parcel month by month. "Here's the smoking gun," Landry said, zooming in on the pool area. "Her pool's plumbing system taps directly into the aquifer. That's illegal water extraction without a permit. State violation, possibly federal if it affects interstate water tables." He'd document everything, create a visual case so clear even a jury could understand it in 30 seconds. Front 3, political pressure. Cruz knew someone on the county board of supervisors. Reina Ibarra, 60 years old, former teacher, reputation for being incorruptible. We requested a meeting. Showed her everything, Oren's report, the water rights scheme, the cozy relationships between Vivica, Tillridge, Core, and Kelton. Reina sat in silence for a long time. Then she said, "If this is accurate, we're looking at RICO-level conspiracy." She promised to call for an independent state audit of the planning and assessor offices, and she'd push for an emergency county board meeting to address the allegations publicly. "Sunlight is the best disinfectant," she said. "Let's drag this into the open." Front 4, media amplification. Sloan pitched her story to the network affiliate in Phoenix. They bit immediately. Assigned her to produce a 3-part documentary series. Desert Water Wars, How Officials Stole Land for Profit. She'd interview all 4 victims, me, Hoyt, Tisha, Cruz, show receipts, play recordings. Arizona is a one-party consent state, which meant any conversations we recorded were admissible. "This goes beyond local news," Sloan said. "Water theft is a national story. I've got interest from outlets in California and Nevada already." The final piece, financial warfare. Iris saved the most devastating move for last. "We file mechanics liens against Vivica's other properties," she explained. "It freezes her liquidity. She can't sell anything or refinance until the liens are resolved, and we get those liens placed before she can move assets offshore." She'd already identified 3 rental properties Vivica owned, plus a yacht slip in San Diego. "We choke off her cash flow right when she needs it most for legal defense," Iris said with a cold smile. Let's see how she likes financial warfare. I looked around that cramped strip mall office. At Marlowe with his pro bono awards on the wall, at Iris hunched over her laptop, at Oren's meticulously documented evidence, at Landry's high-tech equipment, at the commitment from Raina and Sloan. 2 months ago, I was alone with a deed and $40. Now I had an army. We worked through the night, filing motions, organizing evidence, coordinating timelines. Hoyt brought coffee at midnight. Tisha handled social media. Our Facebook group had grown to 4,800 members. The musty smell of old files mixed with fresh coffee. Papers rustling, keyboard clicking, the fluorescent lights humming overhead like they were tired but wouldn't quit. Around 3 in the morning, Marlowe leaned back and said, "You know they're going to come at us hard when this hits." "Let them," I said. "We've got the truth." Iris looked up from her laptop. "Truth and a damn good legal strategy." We filed everything at 8 a.m. when the courthouse opened. By noon, all hell broke loose. The response came faster than I expected. 2 days after we filed our motions, Kerrigan and Lyle called Marlowe. They wanted to discuss settlement. We met in a sterile Phoenix conference room. Glass walls, polished table, leather chairs that probably cost a month's rent. Vivica's attorney slid a document across the table without introduction. $150,000 cash, immediate quitclaim of your deed, non-disclosure agreement with a $1 million penalty for any breach. Marlowe didn't touch the paper. Counteroffer. Ms. Stroud demolishes the mansion at her expense, pays our legal fees in full, and issues a public apology on camera, admitting fraud. The attorney's face remained blank. I'll relay that to my client. We never heard back. 3 days later, the attacks started. Anonymous social media accounts appeared overnight across Twitter, Facebook, and local forums, all pushing the same story. I was a scam artist trying to steal an innocent woman's home, a deadbeat, a con man harassing a successful businesswoman. Someone created a fake mugshot with my face photoshopped onto it, completely fabricated, but it spread fast. Fake Yelp reviews appeared under a contracting business I'd never even owned, claiming I'd stolen from customers. Tisha spent 2 days tracing IP addresses. The accounts ran through a VPN, but the payment for that VPN service? Corporate credit card registered to Stroud Premier Holdings. Sloppy, Tisha said. They're panicking. Cruz's cybersecurity contact helped us monitor Vivica's digital footprint. Her browser history told the story of someone losing control. Search queries like, "How to prove adverse possession Arizona," and "Can you falsify property records," and "Offshore asset protection trusts." We documented everything, sent it to the FBI field office with a note about possible wire fraud. Then they burned Marlowe's office. The call came at 2 in the morning. Marlowe's voice was tight. "My office is on fire. Get down here." I made the drive to Sierra Vista in just over an hour. Fire trucks were still there, water flooding out the doors. Smoke hung thick in the night air. The tax prep place next door had smoke damage, but Marlowe's office took the worst of it. The fire marshal called it an electrical short. Marlowe had used the same wiring for 30 years without problems. "This is arson," Marlowe said, staring at the charred remains of several file boxes. Security footage from next door showed a figure in a dark hoodie walking past at 11 p.m. The build and gate matched Vivica's ex-husband, the PI, who'd left that threatening business card on my door. But the footage was too grainy for criminal charges. I stood there in the parking lot, smelling burnt paper and melted plastic, feeling rage settle cold and hard in my chest. They'd crossed from legal warfare into actual crime. Then Marlowe smiled. "We digitized everything 2 weeks ago," he said. "Cloud backup in 3 separate locations. These boxes?" He gestured at the charred mess. "Old closed cases from the 90s. Decoys Iris had suggested it, said we should assume they'd try something desperate. The real evidence was untouched." Marlowe held a press conference the next morning. "We anticipated this level of desperation. We're prepared for anything they throw at us." That same week, Deputy Kelton got placed on administrative leave. Someone had sent that photo of him day drinking with Vivica to the Arizona Department of Public Safety. Internal Affairs opened an investigation into his conduct. Within 48 hours, Kelton retained legal counsel. Same law firm as Vivica, Kerrigan and Lyle. The media loved it. Local news ran segments about cozy relationships and conflicts of interest. Sloan's network affiliate did a deep dive showing how many times Kelton had responded to complaints involving Stroud Premier properties and always ruled in their favor. The walls were closing in. You could feel it. 3 days before the county board hearing, Vivica made her most desperate move yet. She filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The filing claimed business insolvency and requested an automatic stay on all litigation. It was a legal maneuver designed to freeze everything for months while the bankruptcy court sorted through her finances. She also filed a homestead exemption, declaring the mansion her primary residence. If approved, it would protect the property from creditors, even if she lost everything else. Marlowe called me with the news. His voice was flat with exhaustion. It's a stall tactic. A good one. Bankruptcy court has jurisdiction now. Everything stops until they work through it. I sat in my Airstream that night, staring at the dented aluminum ceiling. They'd tried intimidation, bribery, arson. Now they were hiding behind bankruptcy protection. But there was something they'd forgotten. Something Iris had mentioned during our planning session. Bankruptcy requires full financial disclosure. Every asset, every debt, every transaction, under penalty of perjury. Vivica had just been forced to open her books to a federal court. And we had a forensic accountant ready to read every single line. Bankruptcy should have slowed us down. Instead, it handed us a weapon. Iris smiled when she heard about the filing. Bankruptcy requires complete financial transparency. She just gave us subpoena power. Within 48 hours, Iris filed 3 motions in bankruptcy court. Convert Chapter 11 to Chapter 7, forcing liquidation. Dismiss the homestead exemption because the mansion sat on land Vivica didn't own. Appoint a trustee to investigate fraud. The bankruptcy schedules arrived 3 weeks later. Iris, Marlowe, and I spent a weekend at Marlowe's temporary office above a hardware store going through every page. What we found was devastating. 2 weeks before filing bankruptcy, Vivica had transferred $890,000 to an offshore account in the Cook Islands, listed as loan repayment to a shell company that didn't exist before 2023. She'd claimed a $1.2 million debt to Hexagon Resource Group. No contract, no payment history, just a massive fabricated debt to her partners that would conveniently consume most of her assets. The schedules also revealed 4 rental properties, a yacht slip in San Diego, and a vacation condo in Sedona. For someone claiming insolvency, she had an impressive portfolio. Textbook fraud, Iris said, highlighting entry after entry. Hiding assets, fabricating debts to friendly parties, timing the filing to dodge legal judgments. Bankruptcy fraud carried up to 5 years in federal prison, and the trustee had power to claw back fraudulent transfers. Iris filed an adversary proceeding requesting exactly that. While bankruptcy court processed our motions, Sloan's documentary series aired on 3 consecutive nights in Phoenix, prime time. Part 1 covered my story. Part 2 exposed the pattern with Hoyt, Tisha, and Cruz. Part 3 revealed the water rights scheme with documents and expert interviews. The series exploded. 1.2 million views in 72 hours. Number sign Cochise water scandal trended on Twitter. Comments flooded in from people across Arizona sharing similar experiences with developers and corrupt officials. State legislators started asking questions. The Arizona Attorney General announced they were monitoring the situation closely. That's when Vivica's side got desperate. 4 days after the documentary aired, someone vandalized my Airstream again. Pried at the door, bent the frame. Inside, my laptop was gone. They'd poured gasoline on the floor and tried to light it, but aluminum doesn't burn easy. Scorch marks everywhere, half-melted gas can left behind. This time, a different deputy responded. Young guy, professional, actually took photos and filed a proper report. I heard about your case, he said quietly. Not everyone in the department agrees with how this was handled. 2 days later, someone tried to bribe Oren. Man in expensive suit showed up at his house, said he represented concerned parties who wanted the audit revised. Offered $50,000 cash for Oren to retract his findings. Oren recorded the whole conversation, one-party consent state, completely legal. He sent it to Iris, who sent it to the FBI, who forwarded it to the U.S. attorney. Witness tampering, federal offense. County Supervisor Reina Ibarra moved up the public hearing timeline. The public deserves answers now. The hearing was set for Thursday, 3 days away. The day before the hearing, Vivica's mother appeared at Marlowe's office. Delphine Stroud, 70-something, pearls and old money. She wanted to speak privately. Marlowe refused unless I was present. She sat across from us, perfectly composed. My daughter is unwell. This stress is destroying our family. She slid an envelope across the desk. $2 million to resolve this misunderstanding. Marlowe didn't open it. Ma'am, your daughter committed fraud, multiple felonies. There's nothing to resolve. Delphine's composure cracked. You're a factory worker, she said, looking at me. What do you know about business? About investment? You're ruining lives over a piece of dirt. I thought about Simone dying because we couldn't afford better treatment, about losing my job after 28 years, about being escorted off my own land by a corrupt deputy. Your daughter tried to steal water from an entire county, I said. I'm just the one who caught her. Delphine left without another word. That night I stood outside the Airstream under a sky full of stars. Somewhere out there, Vivica was probably awake too, watching her world collapse. 3 days until the hearing. 3 days until everything came out in public. Simone's voice in my memory. Don't let the world make you small. I hadn't, and tomorrow, they'd answer for what they'd done. The county building in Bisbee smelled like floor wax and old marble. My footsteps echoed as I walked through the entrance Thursday morning. The hearing room was packed. Every seat filled, people standing along the walls, 3 news cameras in back. I saw faces from our Facebook group, residents who'd followed the story, people with their own grievances against county officials. Hoyt, Tisha, and Cruz sat front row. Marlo and Iris at the plaintiff's table with boxes of evidence. Sloan near the cameras with her notebook. The county board sat elevated 5 supervisors with Reina Ibarra center. She gavelled at 9 a.m. sharp. Branson Tillridge and Ainsley Core sat at the defendant's table with their lawyers. They looked diminished, less confident than I remembered. Vivica's chair sat empty. Reina read the agenda into the record. Review of property development permit process and investigation into allegations of official misconduct. I testified first. Was sworn in, hand shaking slightly on the Bible. Marlo guided me through everything, the auction, discovering the mansion, being kicked off by Kelton, every threat and roadblock after. When I described Vivica calling me pathetic and Kelton siding with her without checking my deed, the gallery murmured. Reina asked for proof of ownership. I held up the county deed. Marlo entered it into evidence. Then Oren's audit. Then surveys showing the mansion on my parcel. Then the fake survey Ainsley had produced. Each document stacked like bricks building an undeniable case. Oren testified next. Explained how permits didn't match deeds, how approvals referenced non-existent lots, how signatures were forged, how the same surveyor made identical mistakes on multiple Stroud projects. This wasn't negligence, Oren said clearly. This was coordinated fraud. Iris presented the water rights evidence, aquifer maps, LLC filings connecting Vivica to Hexagon. Corporate officers Tillridge and Core positioned to profit from public resources. The room went silent. Iris projected bank records on screen. Tillridge's donation to Vivica's charity. Emails discussing water rights transfers. Another email from Tillridge. Delay disputes past 10-year mark. Possession is 9/10. Proof of conspiracy. Time-stamped. Undeniable. Tillridge's lawyer objected. Reina shut him down. This is a public hearing, not a trial. Sit Sloan testified about her investigation. Showed photos of Vivica lunching with Kelton. Kelton's car in Ainsley's parking spot. When she played audio of someone bribing Oren, the gallery gasped. 3 hours in, the back doors burst open. Vivica. Designer suit. Heels clicking marble. Every head turned. Cameras swiveled. She marched down the center aisle, ignoring whispers, ignoring Reina's gavel. "This is a witch hunt! These people are trying to steal my home!" Reina gabbled hard. "Ms. Stroud, you're not recognized. Sit down." Vivica kept advancing. "I have rights. I built that house with my money, on my land. Ms. Stroud, you can't let some nobody destroy me because he's jealous of success." I stood, didn't speak, just held up my deed where everyone could see. The room quieted. Vivica pointed at me, face contorted. "You're pathetic. You should have taken the money. You can't win. You don't have the resources." "I have the law," I said quietly. "I have the deed. I have proof you, Tillridge, and Core conspired to steal land and sell public water rights for profit." Vivica's mouth opened. Nothing came out. The bailiff approached. "Ma'am, sit down or leave." "No!" Her voice cracked. She turned to the board. "You can't believe them. I donated to this county. I built homes." A man in a dark suit stood from the back, walked forward with a badge. "Ms. Stroud, Special Agent Vickers, Arizona Attorney General. We have questions about your bankruptcy filing." Vivica went pale. Another badge federal this time. "FBI. We'd like to discuss wire fraud and witness tampering." The bailiff moved beside Vivica. She looked around wildly at cameras, at crowd, at Tillridge and Core staring at their shoes. "This isn't happening," she whispered. Reina's voice cut through. "Mr. Tillridge, Ms. Core, you're suspended immediately pending criminal investigation. This board refers all findings to state and federal prosecutors." She gavelled once. Adjourned. The room erupted. Cameras flashed. Applause. I stood there watching Vivica escorted out by agents, watching Tillridge and Core surrounded by lawyers trying to shield them from cameras. Hoyt grabbed my shoulder. Tisha was crying. Cruz saluted. Marlo shook my hand. "You did it." Iris was already on her phone coordinating with prosecutors. I walked outside into Arizona sun, breathed desert air. The weight that had been crushing my chest for months lifted. Sloane appeared beside me. "How do you feel?" I thought about Simone, about being laid off, about that first day seeing the mansion on my land and feeling powerless. "I feel like the system actually worked," I said. "For once." She smiled. "Because you made it work. Most people would have given up. I didn't have that luxury." Behind me, people poured out of the hearing room. Strangers came up to shake my hand, thank me for exposing corruption they'd suspected for years. Someone said I'd given them hope. The TV crews wanted interviews. Federal agents wanted statements. It would be a long day. But standing there in the sun with my community around me, watching the people who'd tried to crush me being led away in disgrace, it felt like justice. Real justice. The kind Simone would have been proud of. 2 weeks after the hearing, everything unraveled for them. Branson Tillridge pled guilty to fraud and embezzlement. 4 years federal prison, $600,000 in restitution. Ainsley Corr took a deal 3 years, lifetime ban from public employment. Deputy Kelton was fired and convicted of official misconduct. Vivica faced 12 felony counts, wire fraud, bankruptcy fraud, conspiracy. Trial set for next year. She was under house arrest at her mother's Scottsdale estate wearing an ankle monitor. Hexagon Resource Group collapsed under investigation. The Arizona Attorney General filed civil RICO charges. Other victims across the state came forward. Our case had opened a floodgate. The bankruptcy trustee made his ruling about the mansion. Since it was built with fraudulent permits on land Vivica didn't own, she had one choice: pay me fair market value for the property or the structure would be seized and auctioned. Vivica refused to pay. The trustee scheduled an auction. Minimum bid set at $400,000. I got my Quitom award the week before the auction, $127,000, 15% of what the county recovered. Marlowe looked at me across his desk. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" I was. Auction day, only 3 bidders showed up: a local developer, a Phoenix investor, and me. Bidding started at $400,000. The developer dropped out at $450,000. The investor pushed to $520,000. I stopped at $540,000. He dropped out. The mansion was mine. I stood on that property 3 days later, the same spot where Vivica had called me pathetic, where Deputy Kelton had escorted me off, where I'd been told I didn't belong. Now the deed had my name on it. The security cameras were mine. The infinity pool was mine. All of it. But here's the thing about $2 million mansions in the desert. The property taxes alone were $18,000 a year. Utilities, maintenance, insurance. I'd be broke in 6 months. I didn't buy it to live in it. I bought it to transform it. I converted the mansion into the Simone Emery Water Education Center. The bedrooms became classrooms. The great room became a community meeting space. The pool, the same pool Vivica had illegally tapped into the aquifer, now hosts free swimming lessons for rural kids every summer. We run workshops on water rights and property law. Partner with Arizona State law students, provide free legal clinics. The garage became an equipment library where farmers can borrow tools. Hoyt, Tisha, Cruz, and I formed the Cochise County Accountability Project. We've helped 16 families fight back against similar schemes in the past year. We host an annual fairness festival that raises funds for rural legal aid. Last year, $34,000. Sloane's documentary won an Emmy. She's developing a feature film about land fraud nationwide. And every time someone walks through that door, the same door Vivica walked out of to call me pathetic, they see a plaque. Simone Emery Water Education Center, built on land purchased for $12,000. Proof that the system works when regular people refuse to quit. 6 months after opening the center, I got a message from a woman in Yuma County. Similar situation: developer, corrupt officials, stolen land. I forwarded it to Marlowe. Let's see what we can do. Because here's what I learned. Corporate bullies and corrupt officials count on you being too broke, too tired, too scared to fight. Most of the time they're right. But not always. I'm not special. I'm a laid-off factory worker who learned property law from Google at midnight. But I had something they didn't count on. I had nothing left to lose and a reason to fight. So if you've got an HOA nightmare, a sketchy land deal, a corrupt official, a developer who thinks laws don't apply, drop your story in the comments. You never know who's watching, who's ready to help, who's been through it and won. Because justice isn't a spectator sport. And if you want more stories about regular people beating corrupt systems, hit subscribe on Karen Stories right now. Next time. My HOA fined me $90,000 for a blue door, so I ran for president and dissolved the board. Don't let the world make you small.